We are so pleased you're here, and we've waited for you your entire lives. Now, we know we say that all the time, but more of you will understand it today. Now, we say more of you because we know that you would only be listening to us or respond to the title if you were the ones who were meant to hear us. Not everyone will. And this is the information that we've been giving you. And we wanted to remind you about how you move to the fifth dimension. You do it individually and internally, and we've given you everything to accomplish that. But not enough of you are doing that, because if you were, you would be happier, you would be at peace, you would stop killing yourselves and others. That's what would happen if you had moved to that place. We gave you something on this date in 2020, and we want to explain everything that we have given you. And as you can see, we have your life operating instructions. We gave you that over decades, but it was meant to be used at this time in your world, which we have called your restructuring. You each exist in the world now to offer your essence, and your essence is who you are, your authentic self, your connection to source, your connection to God, Allah, whoever it is that you believe, that's who you are, and that's why you're here. However, you must understand that you come into the physical plane to work with your energy. You all do. And it depends on the type of energy that you put into the world and into your lives, how your lives turn out and how the world turns out. You create both the same way, as we've said continually. But we did something else. We gave you proof. Because, see, we said to you all a long time ago that you didn't listen to Jesus, Buddha, Mohammed, anyone who has come before, because you didn't believe, because you don't think that you have the ability to affect change in your lives or in your world. And we're saying that you do, and we've given you a being who has done all of that. The reason that we keep speaking about his age and everything that he has done, because we have given him information over decades to bring it to you all now so that your world could evolve. That's why we called it a restructuring. You have to think about everything in a new way, because nothing's going to be the same. We've said that over and over again, but you're not paying attention. We said you would have so many unprecedented events that would be occurring in your world because you're attempting to create a better one. This is that age of Aquarius that you've all thought of, or the fifth dimension. If you think of that as being a place, it is a place in your consciousness, and you each access that individually. We gave you something on this day that our being didn't remember, called evolutionary psychology. That's all the work that we have given you, meaning that you come into the world at a particular time, but you also come with your baggage. That is everything that you've brought from your ancestors, from all those who have come before, and usually they show up in your lives through your parents because they're the closest one to you. You are meant to transcend that. And when you do, you know you've done it because you feel great, you're happy, you're loving, you have no need to kill another, you have no need to steal, and you're abundant. And we've given you all of this proof because we wanted you to understand. Now, let's explain how this occurs. You each come in with a specific life plan that you are meant to live, and it's timed perfectly. It is divine timing. Many of you have wondered why you have not seen Roger doing this for years before. It's because it wasn't time in his life. It wasn't time. He had to develop all of this work and live it and prove it so that he could give it to you so that you would believe. That's how you all evolve collectively. You do that throughout civilizations. Your world would not look the way it does now unless you had had those beings who were willing to come into the world and accept an agreement, as we've called it, to move through things of difficulty and trauma and judgment and all of those things and heal themselves so they could give it to you. And that's exactly what he has done. We've told you that his early life was filled with trauma, filled with loss, filled with diseases, illnesses, all of those things. And we have given him enough information, and he healed all of them. Now, we're not saying that all of you will do that, because most of you won't stay with it, because you give up. You start moving to something else because you think that there's something else. The grass is greener on the other side, and we're saying the grass is green within you because you have so much to offer, but you've just been afraid of it, like all beings are. That's not a judgment. It's just the process of evolution. You accept it at a particular time in your journey. Your journey is just as important in every other soul. The thing that we want you all to understand is that you are all one. That's not a concept that you come to in this lifetime, and it will be probably a long time before more of you begin to understand that. But we've given you enough work in this particular incarnation for you to utilize that and create a much better world, so you don't have what you're experiencing now. If you look at the message that we gave you on this day, you'll question, well, how could they have known that we were going to be feeling this on this precise day? we're not limited by your linear time. You are. We have access to different dimensions, and we want to talk about dimensions because you all have different ones. You have dimensions of consciousness. That's all that it is. And over time, those dimensions has risen by certain individuals deciding they were going to access more information, that they were going to bring in something to the world that could give it to you, more of you, so that you evolve. And then what you're meant to do is give it to others. When you move through something in your life, even if it's challenging, difficult, because this is the problem that most of you have, and especially the ones who would be listening to us, because we know that you've gone through trauma, you've gone through difficulty, you've gone through so many different things, and you're wondering, why is this happening to me? And we're saying that you agreed to do that because when you move through it, wow, will your life be different? And you leave that for all the generations who come later. That's how your world evolved. But it's really the resistance that you feel is programming in your consciousness. You all have it. And again, our being had such difficulty even speaking to you about this, and we showed him all the things that we have given him over the years, his healing that he has done. We showed him even last night. He's having a conversation with his brothers. We had him pull out messages we gave him, because we gave him specific instructions, by the way, and we talked about his skin condition. He was living at the dermatologist forever because he had all these different weird skin things that were showing up, and we told him what to ask himself. What are you afraid of? What is it? Ask these questions. We gave him so many of them, and then he started answering them. Then he healed, and he never had to go to the dermatologist again. And we did something else today because we wanted to make it really relevant for you all to understand. We mentioned in our last session that he had a little heart scare. We knew that it wasn't anything. He knew that as well. But the doctors wanted to see, let's just check. So he had to go back to the cardiologist to have a stress test and all of this. And they're looking at him and they're going, well, there's nothing wrong. And he said, well, yeah, I knew that. And he says, I'm going to be 73 in 2 weeks. And they said, well, how is that possible? Again, limitations that you all have in what you can accomplish. And we've given you the work to do it. Now, the thing that happens is you must understand how you have to use your physical brains, your consciousness. You have to move through the old limiting thoughts to create the new you, and then you create the new world. We also told you many years ago, now we're not saying this as judgment, we just want you to understand the process. We told you during a channeling session that you're going to see more uprising in Israel and Palestine. We said that in Gaza, as you call it now, but we gave you something different before. We even gave you Philistines because we wanted you to make connections. If you make connections to everything that has existed in your history, you start to understand more. You move through evolutions of consciousness. That's all. And it shows up in your physical bodies and forms and in your world. That's why you're creating the world. But you should be so pleased with yourselves because see, this is going to be a hard concept for you because we said that you exist at the most extraordinary time on your planet. Because if you do what you came to do, which is within you, each soul, you have it. There's nothing that makes you less than any other being except your thoughts. That's all. And your belief. And the belief is what we've been working on. And it's been for the longest time. Now let's talk about why we have you go through your lives, because we do this, and you will speak and hear from those who have done our work, who are in our program, and didn't understand why they were doing it, and then they come out different and they're in love with themselves. How does that occur? Because we access cosmic information that will relate to all of you if you're willing to do it. But most of you will give it up and you'll run from it. We had our being create a video, which you will all see eventually. We said he has a plan to save the world. Now, he knows that most of you won't believe that because you don't believe what you can do. That's a generational belief, again, that you've been taught to be limited, that you're not enough, that you're small. That's never true. You just have to move through the old programming that has existed for generations, which is why you're seeing the conflicts in your world now. And we also said that you're going to see monetary changes. What you're changing is the whole paradigm of everything that has existed in your world. All the ways that you controlled one another through financial resources and all, but you got that programmed into your head. So a lot of you can't even allow abundance to come to you because you're still believing the old paradigm. You have to grab the new one. Now, we want you to understand this. The reason that we did not say we're attached to all the archangels and all of that, because we didn't want you to separate yourselves. Because what happens is you look at people and you think they are ascended masters. And our being is that, because he's done all of this. He's ascended to this level, but he wasn't going to use those terms because that is what causes separation. And separation is the difficulty that you all have, because you think you are not as powerful as someone else. That is never true for any of you. But that is a generational thing that you have to work through your limitations, which have been programmed into you, so you come to understand how incredibly powerful you are. Now, we're not going to give up, as we've said, and we've had our being say that as well. And we just put the icing on the cake with everything that he went through in these challenging times to show you what is available, what is possible. He's had so many medical difficulties, because that's one of the things that many of you struggle with, but he's also had all the financial ones that many of you think, oh, this is terrible, that I don't have any money, and always it's because you're not willing to accept who you are. You're not willing to move into that next dimension of you. That's all that it ever is. And we've given you so much information. We even use Carl Jung in some of them because we wanted you to understand how information is passed along throughout generations. Our being never read or studied any of Carl Jung. He just happened to listen to it recently, and then he's discovering, wow, this is everything my Wilhelm has given me. That's what he thought. And how could that happen? You all have that. It's within you. Brilliance is within you, but you have to take the steps in moving through the limitations. Now, the reason we have done our work, because we wanted you to show how it happens, we had him sit down every single day and receive information from us, write it down, and then use it and implement it into his life. He created businesses. He created million-dollar businesses, several of them. He's created so many stars that many of you don't even understand because it's gone on. And today he received an announcement from someone who is publishing a book. And from that book, they're going to go to thousands of people. And it was because of what he advised them to do through us. And no one understood that, but you're all connected through consciousness. That's all that it is. But you have to break down your resistance. Resistance is the thing that causes you to resist who you are and the changes that are occurring in your world. And you will see that we gave you that message on this day in 2020. We want to explain this. We've been leading you on a path for decades, and we've been giving you all the ideas and things that you could think about now so that you could live the best life possible, because you're supposed to. There's no reason for you to suffer. There's no reason for you to be broke. There's no reason for you to not have the abundance that could be there. All you have to do is sit down and discover who you are. That's all. And so that's what our being does. He's done many other things in his life, but he knew that he had to come here. In 2016, we had him change course because he was fine. He was making all this money doing that other thing. And we said, your world is moving into a new place and you have to take a change. And that was challenging. No one understood it, even his family. And that's what many of you will be moving through, because you're individual beings with a unique genetic code, and it's not going to be the same as your parents or your siblings or any like that. It's you, it's unique, and that's the difficulty you each have, and that is what you use to separate yourself from one another, and this is why you keep creating wars. That's all. And so moving to this fifth dimension means that you let go of all of those old judgments which you've carried. They were in you. You just don't recognize them many times, but they are there. And so in 2016, we had him write an article. We started talking about misogyny and racism. See, because you all have those things within you. And if you're not willing to look, which many of you don't, you're trying to even forget your history. Your history is valuable. Because when you look at it and understand it and you say, oh, we didn't know what we were doing then, but we do now, we can make new choices. But if you're going to close your eyes and not look at anything, how can you possibly expand within yourself? How could you expect your world to evolve? Because you keep doing the same things. And that is what is occurring now, which is why we talked about all the different wars and difficulties that you would have, even your weather events. And we gave you something else, an analogy. We love using analogies. We said the hot car. We said, we know what it's like. You know what it's like. Your science has told you what it's like to leave a child in a hot car. You wouldn't do that because you know it's going to kill them. So because the heat gets in there, and what's it going to do? It kills them. You're doing the same thing on your planet. You're keeping the heat locked in, and that's within you. And so we said, we just want you to breathe. And the breathing is owning who you are, and it is a process. Again, you will not accomplish that if you're not willing to take the time in whatever form works for you to sit and be with who you are. Ask the questions. There's guidance. You have higher selves, and all we do is awaken that within you. That's why when you listen to us, you hear things that make sense to you, because there's a universal consciousness that we have channeled, we've given to our being, and then we exemplify what it could do within him so that he could give it to all of you. But we want to say he knows that he's no better than you. He's just a guide. That's all. And so you each can become those guides when you let go of your judgments and your resistance to the greatness that is within you. We gave you a message saying that, this is years ago, you would not remember. Says you were being prepared, because we know that you were going to be looking at events and things that were occurring in your life and thinking you screwed up everything, you did all these things wrong. And we said, no, what you were doing is figuring things out. You were developing higher consciousness so that you could use that to create the lives you want to have, and then you give that to others. But we also want you to understand this time you have never experienced. None of you in the world now have experienced this particular time in your world, which is why it looks so scary. We started with 2016 when we gave you the information about the racism and misogyny, because you can't figure out why you still haven't made women equal to all others. You haven't made any of you equal to all others because you haven't accepted yourselves as equal to all others. That's all. You can't do anything or expect anything to show up in your world that you're not willing to do for yourself. Then what we did is we wrote a book on fear in 2019. See, because we knew that the fear would be so prevalent in your world, in your lives, in your world now, that takes you over. When you get consumed by the fear, and it's coming up now, and you're going to see more of it because none of you know where you're going. However, when you start to love yourselves and move through the old stuff, you'll have a very different world. And this is what we are giving you. And we're doing it today because there's more energy that's coming up in the next several days, even though we told you 3 years ago that you would see that, but it's here now. And the reason that we said the United States would lead the way in this restructuring is because they had been leading. This is all energy again. You must understand that it's energy. You and everything in your world is energy. And so what happened was Pluto, and you can start looking that up and look up, many of your beings have put out various videos for information about the United States and the Pluto return. And if you were to read or listen to any of them, they've done a great job, by the way. If you would listen to any of that, you would understand why we kept saying the United States would lead the way. In 2020, we began bringing this awareness to you, but we knew that you would not be able to necessarily hear it because most of you do not see things as our being does. He has precognitive ability to bring in information. That's why he was able to do this. That doesn't make him any better. It's just what his role is. You each have one. And he is guiding giving the information from us to you to guide you to your best self, to your best life. And that's why we had him name our initial program 4 weeks to your best life, because we know that you can do it if you're diligent about it. But many of you give up. We'll give you a question. We'll give you something to do. And you say, no, I can't look at that because that means I have to look within myself. That's too challenging. That's scary. That's some unknown that I don't want to see. And we are saying that what is inside of you is brilliance. What is inside of you is greatness that you could bring to the world and make a very great difference. And you just decide how much you're going to do that. Now, not all beings will do it. We've given you every information. If you go back and listen to our recordings of the sessions that we have done, you will hear everything that is occurring in your world now. We told you. But again, your consciousness had not arisen to the place where you could hear us and utilize it, but it has now. We're saying that because we know that many of you are aware of that. That's why we said on that message we gave you 3 years ago, you are moving in the right direction, but you've stopped. You haven't gone far enough. You haven't prospered enough. Now, we want you to understand something else. When we give you our information, it's not about sitting in some lofty place. Many of you might do that or go into some spiritual thing. We've never put our being in that kind of environment, because we wanted to bring in work for the masses, and we wanted a big movement. Because see, if you have a big movement, then you have a great world, and it doesn't take you quite a long to get there. And so he's held back too, because he had the same kind of disbelief as all of you, but we've pounded it into him so much that you can't miss it. And any of you who read our messages, you'll see, wondering, why did we say, give you messages that went back 3 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 13 years ago? because we wanted you to understand progression. And we gave you a message on progression as well, saying that's what you do in your lives and that's what you do in your world. And all of it is consciousness. And no one has more than you. And this is the part that when more of you understand this, you will start to live very different lives, you will prosper, and you will create a very different world. Now, we've given you a message before where we said that you are responsible for the conditions of your world. And then we also said, if you cannot believe that, that is the biggest difficulty you've had in your life because you don't understand how important you are. And importance is energy. And it's consciousness, and it expands in your thinking, in your mind. You use your physical brain to cause that to happen, but then you have physical manifestations that are a result of that. But it takes your willingness to let go of the old. And what is occurring now, and you'll see it, and we talked about the United States, and what you're going to see in the next few days is a lot of fighting and a lot of things going on because they still are working with old beliefs that they're sticking to that they don't want to let go of. And those beliefs are about separation, making one better than the other, one more the greater one. It doesn't matter. And that's all ego. And we've given you a definition of what your ego is. And all of you, you're going to see so much of it going on now. And we also gave you a message on blame. We did something else, and you can go and find that when we gave you a message one day on blame. And then we gave you all the messages over the years that we've given you on blame. And if you read them all together, you start to say, oh, wait a minute, I've given myself away, because I've been blaming everyone else for my life and not taking responsibility. And then you could do that with one another. And now you're going to see your governments and your leaders doing the same thing. And you're going to look at all the things happening in the world and it's their fault. No, it's you. It's you not owning yourself. It's you not loving who you are and understanding your importance. Now, again, this is not a judgment because we want you to understand the progression, because you stand at this place right now where if you take action, your lives will start to change in such magnificent ways, and then you'll start to see that in your world. But we will also say that it's going to take a little while because most of you are too resistant, and there's so many other people on your planet now who would never hear anything we're saying, and they'll tell us that it doesn't make any sense. It can't work. That's that limitation again. And it exists within each of you. And so you cannot get to that place of the fifth dimension, as we've spoken of, unless you're willing to let go of that, unless you're willing to understand and accept the possibility that you are great, the possibility that you were born for this brilliant reason, because we know that all of you were. And we've said this over and over again. This is why our being, when we moved him to this place to let go of his judgment, his anger, his hatred, because that was there. You've all had it, and the anger. And the anger is always at yourselves. That's all. You can't have anger at others without having anger at yourself. Because see, when you're having that anger, it means that you are not willing to move to the higher understanding of who you are. And you think you're going to get rid of it by blaming someone else, being angry at them, and not looking within. When you look within in these quiet times, when you give yourself the permission to love who you are, you will see a very different world and a very different life. And we love giving you things in increments because you don't accept it all at once. Again, not a judgment, just a reality of human experience. And everything that we have given you is about human behavior. That's why we wanted you to look up evolutionary psychology. And if you see that, you will understand. Look up the definition. People say, well, this is very new. Yes, it is new because we've given it to you. That's why. All of you come into the world to create something new, but sometimes that's challenging for you. Now, the other thing we want to say, many of you have this belief that you're not doing enough or you're too small, and that is the problem. You have so many beings on your planet who have been taught that they are not enough. And that's why you have people who can take them over, and you have this control issue, which we've said that's what goes on throughout your civilization. You have issues of control, power, and then you use money to do that. And that is what is occurring now. There's no lack of resources or money on your planet, nowhere. And we want you to think about that because you can find if you do a little bit of research, you'll see that is true. There are some that are holding it and you have not brought it into yourself. And again, this is energy so that you can make the greatest difference in your life and in your world. But we're changing that now because we've pushed our being, because he's given up everything to bring through this work. We might have told you that he years ago, when he realized that he had this and it was challenging to accept, he said, but I got to do it. And so he gave up everything physical. He gave up his car. He gave up so many things. He went broke because he knew this was more important. He can't do that anymore. None of you can, because then nothing changes. You're operating from limited places of existence and being that were old. You're meant to bring in something new. That is why you are here. And again, we are speaking to you because you would never hear us unless you were part of the mission to bring in more light and love into your world, and then to succeed and prosper and live abundant lives. You're never supposed to suffer. You're never supposed to struggle. We had him record something about that too, because we want you to understand there is no reason other than your unwilling, your lack of wanting to take the next step in discovering who you are. You will see that everything we have given you is about releasing your judgment and recognizing your importance. And it's a step-by-step process. And as you do that, you feel quite differently. You will find that yourself enjoy. Because see, when you reach this fifth dimensional thinking, as we've thought of being, it's a wonderful place to be. You don't hate others. You're happy. You have this joy, and you become abundant because now you're not cutting yourself off from your authentic self. We cannot find anyone on your planet who does not have connection or a connection to God, source, or the universe. There's no one. You just make different choices. And those choices have been because of the evolution that you've been moving through and from your ancestors and all of that. And you exist now to change that. And that is the restructuring of which we have told you. And so the way you move to that fifth dimension is through everything we have given you. We don't, many of you may not come into our work, it doesn't matter, but we just want you to understand the process. And you'll see, well, we're thrilled because when many did not believe what this would do, we have those in our work who are doing it now and are saying, I can't believe that I didn't know this. I can't believe this is who I am. I can't believe I could be this happy. Many of you won't believe that because you've been traumatized. Please understand that. You've been traumatized not to understand your brilliance and who you are. But we're also saying to you that you can reverse it all. And the more of you who reverse it, you will see a very, very different world. The reason that this particular period might be a little stressful for many of you over the next several months, or up to a year, let's just say we've talked about that, is again, energetic changes that are happening in the galaxies. That's all. You're all affected because you're all energy. But when you understand that and not really let the fear take over, wow, will you do something different? You will become the people that you're always meant to become. You will live your authentic self. You will love who you are. You will have all the money. You'll have the right relationships. And this is the work that we've given you. And we've also proven it to you so that maybe you could have a little more belief. But that is how you move to the fifth dimension, and anyone can do it if they choose to.